Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we sift through the noise, find the key insights from, well, a whole stack of sources, and bring them straight to you.
That's the plan.
So today, we're diving into something sparked by, a headline that seemed pretty straightforward, maybe even positive. It was something like, Study, Baby Talk Boosts Infant Vocalization in Autistic Children.
Right, sounds good on the surface, like a breakthrough.
Exactly, a new way to connect, maybe.
Yeah.
But our mission today, it's to go way beyond that headline.
Definitely.
We're doing a deep dive into the actual study itself,
Oh.
Sue and colleagues, 2025, but also the whole context around it.
Yeah, the bigger picture.
We want to unpack not just what the study says it found, but what it really tells us about how we think about communication, especially with autistic infants.
And maybe even more what it shows about the blind spots in research itself, some persistent ones.
Okay, so at its core, this is about Parentese, that specific way people talk to babies. High pitch, slow, exaggerated.
The sing-song voice, yeah. We mostly all do it.
And the study suggests autistic infants respond to it, much like neurotypical infants do.
Which, again, sounds like new information, maybe.
That's how it's presented. But the real story here, and this is what we're digging into, it's less about some brand new discovery and more about a really long-standing, kind of deep-seated oversight in how research approaches this whole area.
An oversight that many people have been pointing out for a long time.
Right. So get ready to challenge some assumptions, maybe question how we even define communication.
And really hear what many autistic people and their families have been saying, often without being heard, for decades.
Let's get into it. It's quite revealing.
Okay.
So the study itself, let's start there. It defines Parentese meticulously. Slower speech, big pitch variations, drawn-out vowels.
Yeah, the standard definition.
And the big revelation, the thing that made headlines, is that autistic infants, just like neurotypical ones, make these speech-like vocalizations when they hear it.
Presented as a big aha moment.
Exactly. Like, wow, look, they respond.
And, what's really striking when you look closely is the framing.
How so?
Well, the whole premise, even the title often, it just assumes a deficit from the get-go. It's like the baseline assumption is that autistic infants are just silent or unresponsive, lacking that drive to communicate until something external, like Parentese, is applied to boost them.
So the surprise isn't really that they respond.
Exactly. The surprise is built on the faulty premise that they wouldn't. It kind of reveals this underlying belief that autistic infants don't engage or vocalize unless science proves they do.
Okay, so it's not just a subtle thing. It's baked into the research question itself.
Yeah.
That sounds, well, pretty significant. Why is that framing, that starting assumption of lack, so problematic?
It's hugely problematic because it's like a perfect example of what some scholars call epistemic injustice.
Okay, what does that mean in this context?
It basically means the systems of knowledge like formal research have these built-in deaf spots. They systematically fail to hear or value knowledge that already exists within a particular community.
So like autistic adults and parents.
Precisely. They've been saying for years that autistic infants communicate, often in really rich ways, and that connection, that relational attunement between a caregiver and child is vital. It matters.
Right.
So this study confirms a truth, but it struggles to actually name it as just true because it's stuck looking through this lens that expects something to be missing.
Expecting absence instead of seeing presence.
Exactly. It's not silence. It's often a very different kind of song,
It is quite something. You have this peer-reviewed, grant-funded, very official study.
The whole institutional stamp of approval.
And it lands on a conclusion that, frankly, many people in the autistic community felt they already knew, intuitively or through experience.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other basic human truths need a controlled experiment to be validated?
Like, do we need a study to prove toddlers like snacks? It feels a bit absurd.
You nailed it. And it raises this really awkward question. To even test this hypothesis, did the researchers have to imagine, separating infants from their caregivers' natural voices?
Treating connection as a variable.
Yeah. Why treat something as core as attunement, that human resonance, as if it's just a switch you can flip on or off for an experiment?
It suggests a strange way of seeing the world.
It really makes you pause and think, what kind of epistemic world, what framework are they operating in, where the most ordinary parts of human connection need proving like this?
like they're studying an alien species sometime.
It can feel that way. It suggests a real disconnect, maybe a fundamental misunderstanding of the very people they're trying to study.
Yeah.
Always filtering the data through these deficit categories, always looking for what's not there instead of appreciating what is.
And this isn't just a one-off thing, right?
Yeah.
The source material we looked at suggests this is part of a bigger pattern, a recursive loop, it calls it.
That's a great way to put it. A recursive loop. Like quicksand, almost. It pulls research deeper and deeper into this deficit way of thinking.
Okay, break that down for us. How does this loop work?
Sure. It seems to happen in about 4 steps, reinforcing itself along the way.
Right.
First, there's the presumed lack. Autistic kids are seen, right from the start, as not verbal enough, not responsive enough, not motivated enough to connect in the right way.
So step 1, assume something's missing.
Exactly. Then step 2, categorization. This is where labels like nonverbal or minimally verbal come in.
Okay.
But these aren't just descriptions. The source argues they actually codify absence. They define people by what they don't do according to a neurotypical standard.
And that ignores.
It ignores or dismisses the huge variety of actual communication happening. Things like echolalia, repeating phrases, or scripting, using whole language chunks, gestalts, singing, humming, rhythms, repetition, all valid, meaningful language.
Got it. So presumed lack, then categorization that reinforces the lack. What's next?
Step 3 is interventions, often rooted in ABA, applied behavior analysis.
Which focuses on changing behavior.
Right. And these interventions are often designed specifically to fix the absence, to replace the natural autistic communication styles with something considered more functional, which usually means more neurotypical looking.
Okay. Trying to fill the perceived gap.
And then step 4, the loop closes with further lack.
Now.
Because if you've already decided that authentic autistic communication, like scripting or gestalt processing, doesn't count as real language, then your intervention designed to replace it can only ever confirm your starting point, that there was a lack to begin with. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Wow. So the system is built to confirm its own bias. It can't really see anything else.
Pretty much. It structurally excludes the very evidence that would challenge the premise.
So what does this mean, practically, for how we actually perceive and, support autistic communication in everyday life? What are the real-world consequences?
Huge consequences. It shapes therapies, school goals, parental expectations, everything.
Now, the source writer, Jaime Hoerricks, actually did her own digging, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not just on the study, but on the lead author, Pumpkile Sue, looked her up using academic search engines.
Yeah, she did, kind of tracing the intellectual breadcrumbs.
And this wasn't just about criticizing one person, but about revealing what she called a genealogy of autism research, showing the lineage of these ideas.
Exactly, understanding where these frameworks come from.
So what did that digging uncover? When Hoerricks looked at Sue's most cited work, what patterns emerged?
Well, it really highlights the prevailing currents in the field. It's quite revealing. For instance, one highly cited paper by Kogel and others from 2019 was a systematic review titled Intervention for Nonverbal and Minimally Verbal Individuals with Autism.
Okay, there are those labels again.
Right there in the title. Framing people by what they supposedly don't do, communication-wise, it sets the tone immediately.
Started from deficit.
Then another one, Kogel et al., 2020, was about the definitions of nonverbal and minimally verbal.
Defining the category.
Exactly. The source sees this as essentially an act of gatekeeping, codifying absence into a formal taxonomy, drawing sharper lines around who gets to count as speaking.
Deciding who's in and who's out, communicatively speaking.
And significantly, that 2020 paper cites a major 2019 study by Lombardo, Lai, and Baron Cohen. We'll probably circle back to Baron Cohen's influence.
Okay, and there was a third one.
Yes, Sue et al., 2021. This one looked at the role of early social motivation in explaining variability in functional language in autistic toddlers.
Social motivation. Okay.
And here you see that sort of old ABA logic creeping in again. It links language development primarily to social desire, as if language isn't also deeply tied to, the body's rhythms, memory patterns, gestalts.
Right, not just a reward-driven social skill.
It kind of subtly implies maybe autistic kids don't develop language the right way because they aren't motivated enough socially. It reduces language to this one dimension.
So a consistent theme running through these highly cited works, but amidst all this focus on lack, on definitions of nonverbal, what was the most glaring omission Hoerricks found? The thing that just wasn't there?
And this is where it gets really Astounding. According to Hoerricks' search, despite a whole career focused on communication in autistic people, the term gestalt language processing, or GLP, apparently appears not once in Sue's academic record examen.
Not once. But isn't GLP, isn't that a well-known way some autistic people process language?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a recognized natural language acquisition pathway. Kids learn language in whole chunks, scripts, intonation patterns, gestalts before breaking them down. Think of repeating whole lines from movies or songs.
Okay, yeah.
It's super common, widely discussed within the autistic community and by many therapists who work closely with them, and yet complete absence in this body of research.
Wow.
Total non-acknowledgement, which of course perfectly reinforces that recursive loop we talked about.
If you don't even acknowledge a major way people communicate.
Then you can keep focusing on the lack of the kind of communication you were looking for. It erases a huge part of the reality. As Hoerricks puts it so powerfully, we were always speaking, you just didn't know how to listen.
That really hits home. And it makes it clear this isn't just about one researcher's choices. This framing, this loop, it sounds systemic, like it's woven into the fabric of the field.
It really is, and the source points heavily towards the influence of figures like Simon Baron-Cohen. His deficit models.
Yeah.
You know, the theory of mind, deficit idea, or the extreme male brain theory.
Yeah, those are very famous concepts in autism research.
They've been hugely influential. The source argues they've essentially set the terms of the map for decades. They framed how autism itself was understood.
As fundamentally lacking something?
Often, yes. Or as something different in a way that needs explaining through deficit. And work like that Lombardo-Lai-Baron-Cohen study from 2019 on decomposing heterogeneity.
Decomposing heterogeneity.
Yeah.
Sounds complex.
It basically means breaking down the diversity within autism. But the source suggests this often translates into treating autism like an object to be divided, sliced, subtyped, dissected, always looking for the underlying problem or difference, usually framed negatively.
So it becomes less about understanding diverse human experience and more about pathology.
That's the critique. And every time these foundational deficit-focused studies get cited, it's like a ripple spreading out, embedding that deficit frame deeper and deeper into the field's foundations. Makes it really hard for other perspectives to get traction.
And we have to remember, this isn't just theory. It's not just academic debate. This has real, profound personal consequences for people.
Absolutely.
The source writer, Hoerricks, talks very movingly about her own grief and sadness, about learning to see her own way of communicating as a lack because, well, the field had already decreed it so.
Absorbing that external judgment before you even have the words to question it.
Yeah, internalizing that deficit frame.
And that experience, sadly, is not unique. If you connect it to the bigger picture, think about the wasted time, as the source puts it.
Wasted time.
Generations of autistic people spending energy trying to fix themselves, trying to undo communication styles that were never broken to begin with, trying to perform neurotypicality because they were told their way was wrong or absent.
That sounds exhausting.
Yeah.
And painful.
It's part of the trauma for so many raised under that shadow, constantly feeling like your presence is actually an absence or some kind of failure. So reclaiming your own voice, recognizing your communication as valid as it is, that's a huge part of healing.
Unlearning those harmful messages.
It's this incredibly difficult but vital journey of unlearning the categories imposed on you and finding your way back to the language you always spoke but were perhaps told wasn't real or wasn't good enough.
Which makes this kind of deep dive, this analysis, feel like more than just critique.
Definitely.
The source sees it as providing scripts for others, giving people the language to push back when research or policy invalidates their lived experience.
Yeah, like planting warning signs, showing you where that deficit thinking might be hiding, maybe even in the footnotes of a study.
And building what's called a countercanon, a body of knowledge written by autistic people, offering that alternative, truer narrative.
Yes. And this is so fundamental to what gets called narrative sovereignty.
Narrative sovereignty, I like that.
It's the right to name yourself, the right to draw your own maps of understanding based on your own experience. And crucially, the right to reclaim the truths that have been buried for so long under that heavy weight of the deficit frame.
It's a refusal to be erased, an insistence on being seen and heard authentically.
Exactly. It's about building a body of knowledge that actually reflects lived reality, free from those historical biases and blind spots.
Okay, so let's bring this all together as we wrap up. We started with this seemingly simple study about Parentese.
Right, the baby talk study.
And we've uncovered how it inadvertently shines a light on this much bigger systemic issue, that persistent deficit frame in a lot of autism research.
Yeah, it almost trips over its own feet, doesn't it? It shows autistic infants do respond, they do vocalize, they do engage.
Proving they were never silent to begin with.
Exactly. It undermines the very premise of lack it started with.
But instead of that leading to maybe dismantling the whole frame,
Right. Instead of saying, wow, maybe our starting assumptions were wrong.
the conclusions often seem to circle back. They might acknowledge the response, but still frame autism as an exception, or maybe conditionally included if the right boost is applied.
It often stops short of really challenging the foundational flaw in the framing itself. And that means huge parts of autistic communication, like gestalt processing or scripting, remain largely unacknowledged in the official literature. Erased, in a way.
So this leaves us, and you, our listener, with a pretty important question to chew on, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
What if the biggest discovery we need to make isn't actually about what autistic individuals can or can't do?
But maybe about how the rest of us, as a society, as researchers, need to fundamentally learn to listen differently.
Yeah. And maybe redefine what we even count as valid, meaningful communication in the first place.
It makes you wonder what other truths, known through lived experience in all sorts of communities, are just sitting there waiting for official academic discovery.
Simply because they challenge the established ways of thinking. Lots to think about there.
Definitely. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. It's been quite the exploration into communication, research, and how we define ourselves and others.
We hope it's given you some new perspectives. Until next time.